Where in the body are the physical emotions really being held? If you release emotions when you're stretching, for example, how does that work? Well, nobody really knows, and it's very complicated because you're talking about many different layers in the body. But I'll say one thing first. It really depends on what you mean by emotion, because the body cannot feel emotions. Only your mind, your heart mind, or your soul, right, your essence can really feel emotions or experience emotions. Whatever is happening in the body is really just physiological processes, chemical, electrical processes. So the mind is what really experiences those processes as an emotion. Maybe it triggers a memory or something like that, or maybe not, and it's just sort of a intense experience of the soul, really, is what an emotion is. So your body can't really store emotions. If it does at all, it would have to be in some part of your brain, or your higher parts of your brain that hold memories. But yet, it does feel like it's coming out of the body. And so we can look at the different layers of the body and think about how that might actually work. So we have the nervous system, which is a communication system that's really rapid communication, electrical communication in the body. And it has the central hub of the brain. It has a conscious element and an unconscious element. So we have reflexes, and we have an autonomic nervous system that is controlling all these processes that we don't need to be aware of, like digestion and breathing and temperature regulation and postural holding patterns. So the nervous system kind of sets the body up to be prepared for whatever it thinks is going to happen based on past experiences, or maybe current perceptions, or even imagination. You can imagine things to be worried about, and your body starts to prepare for those events. And so I think of these as postural holding patterns. So you might hold tension in your chest if you have social anxiety, or you might clench your pelvic floor or your hip muscles for if you have fear of something else. So those are really a product of the nervous system. They're not stuck in the flesh of the muscles and connective tissue. They're originating in the nervous system. So that's really important to understand, and it's relevant to yoga because we're really working on the mind. That's the only thing that matters. Don't put too much emphasis on your physical body, because it's aging and it will fail, and your physical body will die and decompose, and it will never be perfect. So if you put too much emphasis on the physical body and worry too much about your muscles and your connective tissue, you're missing the real point, and you're gonna fail in the end. So think more about the mind. Always come back to the nervous system, but really to this transcendent level of the mind and the soul, the experiencer. Okay, but we have the nervous system, and then we have muscles. Muscles are kind of a subset of the nervous system, because muscles are just controlled by nerves. So they're electrical, they're chemical and electrical, but they hold tension based on what the nervous system is telling them to do, right? So they don't really have their own intelligence so much. And then we have connective tissue, and this is a really interesting, because connective tissue is permeating the whole body. It's wrapping around muscles, it's inside the muscles. Some of it is called fascia, and those are the sheets that wrap around things, but there's also connective tissue just everywhere, permeating everything. And it has a lot of interesting qualities. It's chemical, it's reactive to chemistry, pH and everything, hormones, but it also has its own sort of electrical properties called piezoelectric. So it does have a sort of an intelligence to it. And in fact, connective tissue is how acupuncture works, mainly connective tissue. And it's probably how stretching really affects on a deeper level. But the connective tissue doesn't really have a central hub of integrated intelligence. It doesn't have a brain. So it has this sort of ability to communicate and send signals through the whole body, like through the meridian system. But it doesn't have that kind of integrated intelligence like the nervous system has. But yet it's intelligent, but it's a different kind of intelligence. And I wouldn't say that the connective tissue can store emotions, but what it does is it holds the patterns and makes the body more efficient. So when the nervous system is telling the muscles to hold tension, say in preparation for something that you're worried about or something that has happened to you in the past. So you tend to hold tension in your chest, for example. Your muscles pull the body into this defense pattern. And then after a while, maybe a couple of weeks or maybe 15 years, the connective tissue models around that. So it makes it so your muscles don't have to work so hard. The connective tissue will sort of shape into that habitual pattern that the nervous system has originally created. So the connective tissue is this denser layer that forms, and it's slower, a much slower way. It's a slower adaptation. It's slower to form and it's slower to change. So your body can get stuck in a way in certain postures if they are deeply habitual for a long period of time. But you can release the connective tissue. You also have to do that gradually through slow stretching. Acupuncture helps, and also stretching on a regular basis. So for a long time, daily. You can encourage the connective tissue and fascia to remodel into a new pattern. And when you first start to do that, coming back to the original topic, when you first start to release the connective tissue, what it seems like to me is happening is that you're able to feel something that you hadn't felt in a long time. So if you had this part of your chest closed for a long time, started in your nervous system, into the muscles, finally the connective tissue modeled around it. And now you're starting to release and open the connective tissue through camel pose, bow pose, whatever. Stretching. Now you can feel something. These nerves that are innervating the chest and the heart and the lungs can send new signals to the brain and sort of wake up parts of the brain that, or maybe a memory, or maybe a powerful emotion arises from this new sensation. And that's really what I think is happening. So it's all the layers of the body involved in the release of emotions, but it's always the mind. It's really the nervous system in a physical sense, because the nervous system is flesh. It is a physical layer of the body. But it's probably the part that's most closely connected to the intellect, or to the higher part of the mind, or the soul, you could even say. So I could talk about this for a few hours, but I hope that that was at least interesting to you, and I would love to hear your thoughts and experiences on that topic.